My name is James Pepper. I'm the chair of the Cannabis Control Board. Today is December 17th, 2025. It's 1:02 p.m. and I call this meeting to order. A lot on the agenda today, so I'm going to keep my remarks short. I want to note at the outset that we had a report of someone not being able to join our last board meeting on November 19th.
On the top right, the icons.
Of the hundreds of meetings we've held to date, this is actually the first instance that I'm aware of where someone couldn't get in. So I do want to apologize to that person if you're listening. And also mention that if you're ever having trouble accessing a meeting, I would say the first step is to just make sure you're clicking on the correct link, which you can find at ccb.vermont.gov/calendar. You can also find the dial-in instructions there. And if you're still having trouble, please reach out to ccb.info@vermont.gov. That goes straight to Patrick, who's running the meeting, and he can try his best to help troubleshoot the problem in real time. Quickly on the medical use endorsement, we held our first enhanced bud tender training on December 3rd. I thought it was a great class, really impressed by the level of knowledge and professionalism of all of the participants. I really appreciate the feedback that we received. We're going to make some adjustments to the format before the next one, which is on Thursday, January 29th. Given that space at these trainings is somewhat limited, we are going to once again prioritize the employees of people who have received their medical use endorsement or that are in the licensing queue for that. But my hope is that we'll have another training in rapid succession that will be open to a broader universe. The equivalency guidance, I don't want to get ahead of the agenda item on purchase limits and product equivalencies, but I do just want to apologize for the anxiety and consternation that our draft guidance has caused. Setting aside the policy about whether there should or shouldn't be transaction limits, I certainly understand the concern around the rollout of the guidance. We are working to refine our internal processes to ensure that our decision-making is predictable and transparent, and that we give plenty of lead time to the industry and other interested parties so that they can provide input and prepare for any significant changes to the market structure. I want to express my genuine gratitude to everyone who's taken the time to explain the impact of that proposal and helped us think through alternative approaches. I also want to thank the compliance team who's spending a lot of time with this policy over the past few weeks and months, really. They are oftentimes on the receiving end of the decisions that the board makes. They're out in the field interacting with licensees every single day. And I just want to thank you all, compliance, for your continued patience and understanding while we work through this issue. With that, I just want to approve minutes. I should note, Julie is out today. She's under the weather and she can't join the meeting, but hopefully she has a speedy recovery. But other than that, we just need to approve the minutes from our last regular board meeting, which was on November 19th, and our special board meeting on December 3rd.
Sounds good. Just us today.
Okay. I will second your motion.
Yeah.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
That's strange.
Okay. First on the agenda is public comment. We will handle this the same way we always do. If you join via the link and would like to make a public comment, please raise your virtual hand. We'll do our best to call on you in the order that you raise your hands, and we'll move to anyone who joined by a phone. Dave, you want to go first? Dave Silverman?
Yeah, thanks. So obviously very eager to hear your updates later. And so on the different topic, I've had some conversations with staff recently about data and what data is available and isn't available and what can be published and what cannot. And I think it would really be helpful for the board to make some policy decisions on what it is that you're going to regularly publish and what information is going to be made available. There's a lot of good reasons to get a lot of data as much as possible out to the industry so that people can understand what's going on in the market in a better way, not just through anecdote. And I think we can all agree that it's been a very, very long time to get any kind of data out on the market. And I hope that we can all agree that it's important to do. So I really want to urge you by your next meeting to put out some sort of policy position to your staff on what should be released, how that should be released, how often it'll be updated, and what information specifically. And I, to the extent that you don't know what the industry is looking for, I would encourage you to reach out, to folks who, not just myself, but other folks who've expressed interest in this, and ask, and we'd be glad to share with you, what fields we think would be most helpful. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Dave. Robert Nunez.
Yes, hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Awesome. Hey, everybody, thanks so much. My name is Robert Nunez with Herbmont, and I just wanted to address the board real quick, say thank you so much for your patience and guidance with my project, our project. It's, I know it's been a long time coming, and so we really appreciate you, hanging with us, and thanks to Andrew, our representative. Real quick, I just wanted to give a little bit of context to our late renewal. I don't know if that's still on today's docket, but we were really, really close. We almost made it, but because unfortunately of some permitting issues that were, unbeknownst to me and my learning curve as a first-time business owner, really kind of pulling this off, we unfortunately got inspections a little late with the holiday season, and they're actively working today and tomorrow to finish up. There are final inspections for everything. So that we can get an updated certificate of occupancy, which we already have since we already have our licensing, but this is for the changes that we made since the approval. So I just want to give a little context. We're social equity applicants, and we've really received a lot of great guidance and great discounts, but we're hoping we can also get a little bit of grace and time with our social equity for the learning from our mistakes and kind of just catching up. A lapse in our licensing wouldn't be that big of a deal, but we are trying to open for the holidays in the first of the year, and we would lose some momentum if we did have a lapse and have to wait until the 14th. So we just wanted to give you some context and let you know how close we were. We were really close, and thanks again for your grace, consideration, and patience.
Thank you, Robert.
Thank you.
Anyone else for a public comment? If you join via the link, you can raise your virtual hand. If you join via phone, you can unmute yourself by hitting *6. Going once, twice. Okay. I'll close the public comment window. Move down the agenda. First is the transaction limit guidance. This is the product equivalency issue. So, this issue to me, I'm just going to give a little bit of context.
Sure,
we're going to have
please.
a discussion, is not as straightforward as one might think. There are a number of states that have a purchase limit for product equivalencies, and they have all come down differently on what the THC cap should be. I think Colorado, to me, is an interesting case study, mostly because they were first, but also they didn't have a product equivalency limit at the outset of the market, but then their legislature later added one. So the marijuana enforcement division there hired a consultant to evaluate how exactly to do this. And they generated a 45-page report that essentially determined that there is no good way to do this. They looked at various options, the physical equivalency, essentially how much THC could theoretically be extracted from 1 ounce of flower using various extraction methods. So they got ranges of THC for each one of those various extraction methods. That on the upper end would have put them at a cap of about 4,300 milligrams or 8 grams of concentrate. Then they looked at the pharmacokinetic equivalency that accounted for the different physiological differences based upon the various modes of administration. And there they landed on 830 milligram cap of edibles or 7.72 grams of concentrate. Then they looked at the market price equivalency, where they looked at the average prices across various product types, and that yielded somewhat similar results to the pharmacokinetic equivalency. And then they threw all that out and landed on a different set of numbers. They didn't really follow any of those methods. And then you look at the states that came online afterwards that have the exact kind of 1 ounce or product equivalent, and their numbers are all over the map. Connecticut, 800 milligrams of edibles or 8 grams of concentrate. Delaware, 750 milligrams or 12 grams of concentrate. Massachusetts is 500 milligrams or 5 grams of concentrate. New Jersey, 4 grams or 1,000 milligrams of edibles. Illinois has a different transaction depending whether you're in state or out of state. In state, 500 milligrams or 5 grams of concentrate, and then they have those for out of staters. So I think this is always going to be somewhat of an arbitrary decision, which makes obviously us uncomfortable. We're not supposed to be acting arbitrarily, but it also kind of highlights that we probably aren't in the best position to come up with this. I know there's been a lot of outreach to legislators that they should legislate this. I think that's somewhat of a risky proposition, considering I think the first thing that they generally would do was look to what our neighboring states have done. Even if they were to increase the transaction amount on the flower side to 2 ounces, which is what I guess Massachusetts is looking at. Massachusetts has a 5 grams of concentrate and 500 milligrams of edibles limit. So if you double that, that's what we propose, with the exception of I think beverages was more generous than that. Certainly more generous than some of the other states that I listed off. But that being said, I think our team internally, compliance, Mike and the compliance division, really listened to everything that was presented to us, and they really kind of took to heart all the kind of various, suggestions. They came up with limits very similar to the kind of first approach that Colorado took around the just pure THC equivalency based upon various extraction methods, and came up with essentially a 4,500 milligrams THC limit and 5.6 grams of concentrate. That makes a lot of sense to me. It leads to some kind of oddities when you think about how things are packaged.
It's tough, and thank you for the overview, and thank you for your remarks at the onset about. I think we all learned a lot here about process and how we can. Everybody can do better all the time. I think that's it takes some introspective thought to kind of understand how we can all do better when it comes to kind of changing things and the perception of the rationale or intent as to why something is changing versus, really why something did in fact change. But I think instances like this, it's really tough to kind of couple practicality and then science and math on the other end of that equation. I think the initial attempt kind of looked more at average consumer behavior, who's buying what, when, where, and how, and trying to kind of create a system that met the average consumer typically where they were. And I think one of the things I've learned through a lot of conversations is averages can be a little bit misleading, depending on location, depending on the client or the customer, what they want to buy, how they want to buy it. And, cannabis isn't necessarily set up for these bulk sales, not daily style sales, but bulk kind of transactional sales. But that doesn't mean that those sales should necessarily be discounted. And, I think we could go back and forth on how much a percentage point or 3 percentage points or 5 percentage points means in the grand scheme of things. But, I also know that you and I are not operating a business sometimes on the margins where those percentage points means a lot more to you or to somebody than they do to me. And I respect that. But I think to your point, are we looking at consumer behavior and practically speaking, how, let's say, a case of beverages are purchased, right? If 10 milligram beverages are sold in a case of 24 and you want to buy 2 of those, that's 480 milligrams, where these equivalences would be around 450 milligrams. So we're always going to run into these issues where, it's hard to kind of blend consumer behavior and how folks will want to purchase something with the science and the math. But if you, I'm not sure if that distinction from an arbitrary perspective should solely be left in our hands to kind of understand and hear all the contributing factors to that.
Yeah. And I did want to touch on the point system. I know we're not done with this conversation yet, but that, believe it or not, truly was thought to be a simple way to do some calculations at the register. It was not meant to have anyone change their IT infrastructure, have to, have FlowHub come in and, upgrade their systems or charge you money or Dutchy.
I think it was meant to help folks with the medical use endorsement specifically, help easier, spend more time with a vulnerable, medical patient and understanding what they can buy and how they can buy certain things and in what quantities to kind of better serve them. So, look, our intent has been thought of through a different lens, but in all honesty, we certainly thought it would be a little bit more helpful than the feedback we've gotten, regardless of whether or not any operating system can incorporate that point system on the back end.
Yeah. So on that, the compliance team did recommend keeping the point-based system as a voluntary measure. They created a little calculator that people could use. But, I think to the broader point around process and this idea that, essentially the board would have to choose somewhat of an arbitrary thing. I mean, that's really not, it's almost better for the legislature to be picking kind of arbitrary limits and caps.
It's asking us to justify a arguably political question with science, which is
right.
It's a tough place to live.
Right. And I mean, just in the outreach that I've gotten from the legislature, from all political spectrums, I think legislators want to revisit this cap. And I think, we've essentially had I know that 8,400 is a cap, but it's pretty on the outer end. So we've essentially been operating for all practical purposes without a product equivalency cap for the last, since the inception of the market. And I think, when the legislature hears that whatever fear they were trying to accommodate by imposing a cap that has not been materialized, has not been realized, that they may decide that we don't need a product equivalency cap at all, that they could just delete that phrase from the statute, or raise the ounce to 2 ounces or whatever New York has, 3 ounces. And then that would kind of change the equivalency too. They may want to just legislate what the equivalency is.
And the flip side of that is we could end up with lower numbers than even our first initial, redoing of guidance suggested. So, you know, there's a buyer, hopefully not a buyer's beware type of mantra,
Yeah.
you know, but, you know, it opens the door for folks to come in and to the legislature and to various different committees from various different perspectives, share what they think an equivalency to an ounce of flower is.
Yeah. Well, I'm pretty much of the opinion. I mean, I think there's some really, I think there's a good foundation for what compliance did, but I'm almost of the opinion that instead of implementing something that we know is going to be discussed, we may get some legislative directive on this question, you know, so instead of implementing something in the short term that may change in 6 months, it probably makes sense just to continue with the system that we have until the folks in the Golden Dome have had a chance to weigh, which would be kind of default to the 8,400 milligrams until July 1st. I mean, it's kind of my thinking about it.
Yeah, I certainly like the proposal that I've seen, or that kind of couches most of these products and its equivalencies around 4,500 milligrams. But I think if we're of the opinion that this is going to be talked about over the next couple months and given the attention that it likely deserves at the legislature, then I don't think any of us want to find ourselves in this position again. There might be a new charge, some you know, some new wrinkles. I think it makes sense to kind of just pull back and kind of, you know, and if we see that the legislature isn't interested in this and it doesn't make it too far down the road of becoming law, we repeated it a little bit more quickly. But I think we need to see what those signals are coming out of the Golden Dome.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, they're not gonna. Well, they have to adjourn before July 1st.
I'm with you. I just was thinking like something's in a draft bill now and it gets struck before crossover. It could get put back in, but you know, the odds become less likely. So, you know, I don't want any more moving targets. I know that this industry has gone through various different rule changes and statutory updates over the last 4 or 5 years. I'm just kind of, again, trying to marry the practicality with the science here, which, you know, everybody, just given human nature, kind of views those issues differently since the dawn of time, right?
Yeah. So I think the best thing for us to do is to kick out the implementation date. I mean, what about this? How about we change trying to think. I don't want to give the impression that we're going to just implement the existing proposal on July 1st.
I think we either move in that direction with an implementation date of July 1st, or we pull back completely and revisit this later to 2026.
Okay.
It feels cleaner to wait.
Yes.
Not knowing how conversations are going to go, or if you know, the 1 ounce designation changes one way or another, or the equivalency stuff gets struck, you know.
So then why don't we just rescind the proposed changes to the equivalency guidance, revert back to the 8,400 and just commit to revisiting this in July.
Yep.
We have more guidance from the legislature.
Okay.
Do you follow all that, Gabe and Olga?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I do like the compliance thing, the compliance proposal. We would want to publish that first.
I think it's a fair proposal, but I think we can kind of dust that off in the coming months if necessary, and put it out for conversation at a board meeting like this, and kind of take some feedback and move. If nothing does change at the legislature.
Okay. Yeah. Let's do that. Okay. Is that clear enough?
Yes, you should probably vote it. As I understand it, it would be to withdraw the guidance proposal and to request clarification from the legislature if they wish to give any.
Yeah, and in the interim, revert back to the 8,400.
Okay, so there will be some, although very high, there will be some cap at the interim.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I move to withdraw the proposed guidance with hopes for further guidance from the legislature and reinstitute the 8,400 milligram equivalency cap that served the market before
Okay.
October 2025.
I will second that. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. And we don't want to leave that open, that vote for Julie. I mean, there's enough of us here, but
Yeah, 2 is a quorum, so you can act, and you can, of course, revisit it if you
Okay.
majority decide later they want to.
okay. Great. Okay. Okay.
We're not having Julie across from me, but you know, we got work to do. Hopefully she feels better.
Okay. Next on the agenda is the serving computations of gummy style cannabis products. This is so that we all know that there's a 5 milligram per serving of cannabis products. So there's a per package limit, there's a per serving limit. To me, the per package limit is aimed at avoiding accidental exposures, mostly among kids that might be tempted to eat an entire container of gummies if they opened it. To me, per serving limit, the single dose limit, is really about avoiding accidental overconsumption among adults that may be confused as to what how many milligrams they're actually eating. We're getting people trying to register products that I really think would have led to consumer confusion. Things like hockey pucks that look like hockey pucks that you're supposed to use a knife to cut into uniform doses. It's just
The horrible scoring where it doesn't actually
rip apart
Right.
at the right place. Impossible to get a uniform dose. We have a product registration waiver for a multi-serving gummy expiring. And when I was handling the product, to me, from a consumer confusion perspective or from a uniform separability perspective, that product itself seemed a lot more like a breakable candy bar, which we allow, than some of those kind of like hockey puck style gummies. So, it led me to be thinking, well, maybe, these should be allowed. It's not really a statutory problem to me. It's a guidance problem that we have in our guidance. And we discussed this a while ago when we started seeing kind of a proliferation of these kind of like not easily separable gummies that, it just says that we only allow 10 milligrams per gummy. That's the most that you could have. And having a bright line rule, I just got to say, makes product registration a lot easier. It sets very clear expectations for the market, and it cuts out a lot of that kind of perceived subjectivity that we hear when, one product is okay. Why is this one okay? Why is that one not? Honestly, I think some of that is going to be inherent in everything that we do. This, to me, the product that I handled, I had quite a bit of it. I watched the videos of people tearing it apart, and then I was using them myself. It's not inherently appealing to youth. To me, it's very clear what a single serving is intended to be. They have them in New York already. We've had them in our market essentially from the beginning. It's very easily separable into uniform doses without the use of a tool. To me, this thing meets all the statutory requirements that we're meant to uphold. And just from the kind of accidental exposure perspective, I was on the phone with poison control today, And we're actually seeing a pretty significant decrease in the amount of accidental exposures throughout 2024 as compared to 2023. They haven't published the 2025 numbers quite yet, but there's about a 40% decrease. It was a pretty significant decrease in every age demographic. So,
Right.
you know, the idea that maybe these products may lead to increase in accidental exposures.
The data doesn't support it.
Data really doesn't support it. You know, I'm very cognizant that this puts pressure on our staff to, you know, have clear rationales as to why one product is okay and another one might not be. But I really think that we solve that mostly through, you know, requiring either the videos, which our rule already requiring that we get a physical sample, a non-infused sample that we can physically handle and see, that confirm what we're seeing in the video or not confirm. I think it's really important though that if we do have a kind of multi-dose gummy that meets these other criteria about being uniformly separable without the aid of a utensil, and you know, that there be a picture, a physical description or kind of depiction of the product that clearly demarcates what an individual serving looks like on the package, so that there's no risk of consumer confusion. You're looking at the package, you open it up, you see the picture, and you know exactly what a 5 milligram dose is supposed to look like.
I'm with you 100%. I think with the proper education to the consumer, and you know, a lot of frequent consumers will understand that it's the kind of new consumers that may find themselves biting off more than they can chew initially, no pun intended, that I think that's really important for. And I think we can certainly, and we went through this when we talked about the double dose, the kind of 2 servings in one gummy that's scored and demarcated a certain way. Like we want to see, whether it's samples, videos, a little bit of extra work on the PR side, to put the products into the marketplace. And I think with those proper guardrails, I'm certainly supportive, and the data hasn't shown that these have been such a problem that they shouldn't find a home in our market.
So Gabe, this would essentially, the way that I see it, would be no change to our rule. I think it would really be a change to the section of our guidance document where it talks about gummies that have more than kind of a single 5 milligram dose.
Yes, you're looking at sort of what you want any revision to the bottom of page 13 of your product registration, labeling and registration guidance to say now. I can project that if you would like me to.
Yeah, why don't you do that? That may be helpful.
Thanks. All right. So as you know, but with most foodstuffs and whatnot, we can refer to FDA serving references for consistent and fair idea what a serving is.
So I want to pull your screen over.
Yes, sir. Let me just here we go. Sure.
Yeah, that's the line.
Okay, so here's the important part. There are plenty of discussion elsewhere in this guidance about what, you know, a serving means and all that, but you've kind of got these special product type cases for stuff that, you know, needs a clear rule because of the form it comes in. And this is also where you get the, you know, 10 milligram cap per beverage. But it's really the second bullet point there. Gummies may contain, right now you've got no more than 10 milligrams THC each, consisting of 2 5 milligram doses. And the question is, what do you want instead of that?
It seems to me like you could just delete that first line. It could say gummies may contain no more than, what is it, 25 milligram doses. Individual 5 milligram portions must be easy for a consumer to separate evenly by hand without the use of a utensil. Those submitting multi-dose gummies, so instead of 2-dose, multi-dose, breakable candy bars and other separable products for registration may be required to supply video or samples to demonstrate consistent separability. I'd also like a line in there about they may need subject to additional labeling requirements, and that's to get at I would like to see that they have a depiction of the product on the label, including a demarcation of what a single serving looks like. Okay. There you go. That looks good. And
Portions is probably an English teacher notes somewhere. All right, let's do a portion of gross revenue.
Change 2-dose to multi-dose. Sorry, I'm idea.
Okay. So other than the package limit, that really gives you no limit on, you're up to the package limit in terms of segmented.
yeah, as long as it's segmented. And then I would like to just say that multi-dose gummies may require additional labeling requirements.
Labeling instructions, or I guess labeling requirements. Better. I'm just thinking about the consumer education.
Right, yeah. While Gabe's doing that, I don't really consider this a huge change considering we've had these products on the market from the outset. But I'm wondering if we want to get Julie's input on this. Is it possible to send this to her and see if she objects to it before it takes effect?
No, she's either got to be in the meeting or not, kind of. So it's possible to, well, you can act without her and then revisit it if she has strong objections to the next meeting. If any one person agrees with her, then you can reverse it, of course.
Okay.
Might want to make a warning to industry if we're not really final. Don't go buying molds and whatnot until we're sure where we're going.
Okay. I mean, are you feel pretty confident about this?
Yeah.
Okay. Then I do too. All right. Well, if Julie has concerns, we'll raise them at the next meeting. But I think for now, there's enough of us.
So you approve of what you see in that second bullet at this point?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
All right. Do we want a motion to approve the updated guidance?
I motion to approve the updated guidance.
My second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Alright.
Julie's the motion queen. So forgive me.
Okay.
And your point is it's effective immediately, or I
Yeah.
assume that's
So it's approved for posting right now.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. The next on the agenda is the development of a condensed health warning to facilitate audio advertising. One of the outcomes of the park rec advertising lawsuit settlement was that the board work with the Department of Health to create a health warning that could be used for radio advertisements, or I guess any audio advertisement that could be read in 5 seconds or less. I asked Julie to take the lead on this, and she's not here. But we have worked with the Department of Health, and they have actually approved 2 warnings that can be read in 5 seconds or less for audio advertisements. I wanted her to talk about where the verbiage came from and the process to get here and the kind of support for it from a public health standpoint. She sent me some notes, so I can try to do this without her. But why don't I read the 2 warnings?
Yeah, why don't we walk through them and try and read her notes, but then maybe what we can do is put it on the agenda again for January.
Okay.
I think we're just under some time crunching from a settlement perspective to kind of get these public.
Right.
So I think we should do that, and then
Yeah, I
give
should.
her that availability in January.
Are you able to pull up this settlement agreement and just see what's required under that?
Well, all that was really required under the settlement agreement was kind of good faith consultation with the department.
Okay.
And then it's mostly good news. They were pretty cooperative and fast. And so we have these 2 short statements that are approved by everybody.
Right.
If you were comfortable with them, they seem pretty non-controversial, you could approve the adoption of guidance that incorporates them now. And so
People could start
if you-
using them.
yeah, if you'd like me to read them out or read what the 2 of them are, you could bless them now, or if you'd rather Julie be here to discuss how she got to this place with health.
She did send me her notes. I'm happy to just read the notes. My only question is, there's 2 of them instead of just 1.
Mhm.
Was this meant to be a choice on the part of the advertiser, or was it meant to be a rotating? And I don't know the answer to that.
My understanding was it was advertiser's choice. You could run one of
Advertiser's
the other.
choice.
Yeah, I mean, to me, I think the important thing from a public health perspective to VDH was that people be directed to this website where they
Right.
obtain information. The sense that precedes it, people eventually will hear both.
Okay. Well, why don't I read them, and I'll read Julie's notes out loud and see if there's any discussion that needs to follow. So the first one is cannabis use may slow reaction time, never drive after using. Learn more at letstalkcannabisvt.com, which is the Department of Health website about their kind of preferred cannabis education. The second is cannabis is 21 plus. Early use can harm the developing brain. Learn more at letstalkcannabisvt.com. So the context and purpose, research on cannabis health warnings is still limited. I think these are based off of some Health Canada warnings, but I'm not sure on that. So from the available literature, 17 studies examined the impact of cannabis health warnings. Most studies assessed hypothetical warning effects. Fewer examined real-world impacts after legalization. But the key findings are that the mandated health warnings increase consumer noticeability and recall of health information. Warnings improved health knowledge related to cannabis risks. The warnings focused on addiction risks were consistently rated as the least effective. Health warnings that focused on specific health risks or legal risks were more effective. Short and specific warnings that are clear and associated with known health or legal risks are the best. And I think a lot of that came from research that's done by Health Canada about their health warnings, which uses very short, usually product-specific warnings that rotate over time. But, to me, this was always kind of in the ballpark of the Department of Health. If they're okay with these, I'm fine with them. I think they can definitely be read in 5 seconds or less. And I honestly don't care whether people want to, if it's advertiser's choice or if we just, do one year and one the next year. I mean, they're for audio, so
Sure. I don't either.
there's not as much kind of sunk cost with like rebranding if you're forced to change it. But I also don't care.
Could let staff decide. You don't care.
So, yeah, and we could put a bow on this one, if you guys feel good about it, with a motion that just instructs staff that they're clear to update and publish advertising guidance that reflects the Park Rec settlement and the 2 approved passages that are from the Department of Health.
Okay.
So moved.
Second.
Aye.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. All right. Is that clear enough?
Yes, we know exactly what to type in there, and we'll get that up ASAP, and that should be good news for people that want to do broadcast advertising.
All right. Moving along.
Was there anything else on the advertising guidance that we wanted to touch on, or was that it? I feel like there was maybe another vaguely.
I know we voted on the direct mail.
Yes, and we put that verbiage in. Okay.
Yeah, do you want to take up the direct mail question? I know Julie was kind of interested.
Yeah, I wanted to wait for Julie to take a look at it.
Okay.
So why don't we
now,
table that for now?
Okay.
Yeah. Product displays at industry convention, rule waiver options. Kyle, this was in
Sure.
your bailiwick. You want to take this over?
Yeah, so if folks remember at the November meeting, the board had a vote. I don't know if we voted on anything, but we all kind of thought that if there was a path forward to kind of displaying flower products at an event, that we all were comfortable with it in theory. I've worked over the last month with Mike DiTomaso and the compliance team to kind of think about what that would look like, what the quantities would be, and how we could kind of work it on the back end. And so I do have that proposal. So vendors would be limited to 1 ounce of cannabis flower or 5 grams of solid concentrate per licensee. Vendors can display both cannabis flower and solid concentrates, but cannot exceed 1 ounce or its equivalent in solid concentrates. The ounce of flower or 5 grams of concentrate must be designated as an employee's sample allotment for that month. Display samples may include distinct strains and cultivars, but net flower on hand cannot exceed 1 ounce. There's no, I think at one point we had thought maybe 7 strains, 4 grams of each strain. We decided to not be that prescriptive. So that really provides some flexibility within that 1 ounce. Licensee or cultivators, manufacturers, and retailers may display cannabis samples, but they cannot be stored in loose, large containers available to the public. They must be displayed in clear, secured observation or sniffer jars. Samples cannot be handled by participants. And from a security perspective, I think we want to see 1 employee must always being present at a booth. Display samples can never be left unattended, and the employee of the licensee who has control of the 1 ounce sample must take possession of the sample during event off hours. This was we try to create this to be translatable through multiple events. Obviously, there's one event in the spring that kind of spurred the conversation, and that event is a 2-day event. So what happens in those off hours? I know security is typically there 24/7 for the period of the event, but the employee who has the 1 ounce sample must take possession of the sample during those off hours, and the compliance team will create a event transfer manifest, and we'll create a digital identity for the event as though the event were an establishment. We'll provide a template to capture event-specific transfer manifest that includes the business name, license number, weight of the sample, process lot of the sample, purpose of the sample, employee name and ID designated as sample custodian for the event, and then attestations to retain the sample for personal use attestation to plan destruction with method, date, and location. If they're not going to retain for personal use, the licensees will download the event manifest template, and licensees will transfer the material to the convention identity. So we've kind of worked through how to do this within the context of our sample rules in the background while creating these events and ability to transfer on the back end. So when it boils down to it, each vendor gets the opportunity to display up to 1 ounce total. And there are some solid concentrate equivalents. What are not included here are infused edibles. I saw lots of gummies that were not infused last year. You know, then you can actually taste them, feel them, each of them. And same with beverages. You know, I think that makes sense. So, you know, if that all sounds workable to you, happy to answer any questions.
It does sound workable, and thanks for putting it together. And my only real concern is this was certainly developed with NECAN in kind of contemplation, which has, you know, fixed points of entry and, you know, is brick and mortar, and it has kind of, you know, some very, like, you know, some history to it, and people understand. You know, I wonder if you apply. I haven't thought through fully applying what you have here to any style of event.
I'm with you. I think this solves a part of that larger question that we can maybe work on in guidance or, you know, another tool. The more we hear about other events, you know, whether like a competition, you know, so on and so forth, they might ask for more quantity or something like that. But yeah. I think, you know, we tried to at least create an option to transfer a portion of your tracked product that hasn't been made available for consumer sales on the back end, and kind of set some precedent that this is what we're going to look for from a display perspective. I still think those questions around events, around are they 21 and up, you know, how are you going to handle other questions? Those are questions that will need to be vetted more specifically as we kind of learn about other events that might take place within the state of Vermont.
So I mean, that's my point. I think it's a good framework. I think it could be applied to other events, but I would want potentially some event specific.
I agree. Yeah. And I think this is a good kind of test spot for if this conversation comes up at the legislature.
Right.
You know, but this is titled Events, Inventory Tracking, Transportation, and Product Display. It's intended to fix and solve those questions within our system. There are other questions as it relates to events that require more scrutiny. But I think this folks can be, if we're in agreement here, and you know, I think this makes sense. And I know Julie had signaled at our last meeting that she was comfortable with a framework if we could find one that was workable. To kind of give folks heads up that this will be available in the spring.
Okay.
And, you know, it's an opportunity for event organizers and promoters to kind of look at this and think through, you know, think less about this portion of it and think more about those other security concerns.
Okay. And then, sorry, what are people doing with these samples at the end of the day? It's a 2-day event, right? So
the employee at the end of the day one would be responsible for maintaining possession of those. And at the end of the actual event, they would either retain them as their personal allotment samples for the month as an employee, or put a plan in place with our compliance team for destruction if they didn't want to personally possess them.
So overnight, they'll be secured somehow.
Yes.
And then
I don't think that these should re-enter our.
They shouldn't enter the market anymore. Yeah,
no, I think they've been handled too many times for to feel comfortable from a consumer safety perspective there.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I mean this is fine with me.
Thank Mike. He helped me, and I know he's been stretched pretty thin the last couple of weeks.
Great. I mean, so do we need to vote on this one?
I love it when you vote.
Okay.
So it makes nice minutes. I've got a cloud doc that's got some ideas.
I move that the board authorize the compliance team to waive Rule 2.2.7 for verified participants in the 2026 Vermont NECAN, the Champlain Valley Expo, in order to facilitate vendor displays of cannabis flower and concentrate in conformity with terms proposed by the compliance team. The full waiver, including terms, shall be issued on letterhead in writing to NECAN organizers, who shall in turn furnish the board with a complete and accurate list of participants.
Okay, yeah, and I second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. When I was listening to the motion, I think it's flexible enough that certainly they would need to have appropriate insurance and, have approval by whatever, if the town doesn't want this, that they would be subject to that. I think they need local permits for an event like this anyway, right?
I think this solves the problem within our rules and our system.
Right.
It's incumbent on the event organizers to kind of check the boxes elsewhere.
Yeah. Okay, great. All right, moving along. Next is the enhanced training for bud tenders who interact with patients related to the medical use and endorsement guidance. This question came up a lot, and the reason why we didn't have a great answer for it during the training is that it's complicated, and the statutes say one thing, and our guidance document is a little bit more flexible, and so there is a genuine kind of need for discussion on this. The question really that came up over and over again is everyone who's going to interact with a patient, or do they need to have the training, this enhanced training, or does only one person that's on duty need to be trained, and that person can kind of just be there as a reference point for any patient that has questions, or any bud tender that may be checking out a patient that has questions. This is I know what the statute says. The statute says anyone who's interacting with the patient needs to have this enhanced training. So to me, that's pretty black letter, pretty clear. But it doesn't doesn't accommodate the fact that these trainings have limited attendance, and that we've only had one of them so far, and that it's not necessarily, we're not, from a practical standpoint, able to necessarily have enough coverage 24, throughout all open business hours for every medical use endorsement, every medical use endorsed retailer. So that's a practical conflict with what the kind of basic statute requires. I was involved pretty heavily with the drafting of this statute, and I know what the concerns were. The concerns around this were really about, patients are almost by definition, vulnerable consumers. They have some kind of qualifying health condition. It's pretty serious. That bud tenders are not, motivated. Sure, every bud tender I've ever interacted with has been an incredible source of information and knowledge and helpful. But, there is a concern at the legislature that you may be trying, these are highly potent products potentially, that you've got vulnerable populations, that there may be an incentive to, economic incentive to upsell a patient or match them with the wrong product, or just not know where that line is between offering medical advice, or even kind of reviewing people's medical records and making medical recommendations around dosing or product selection. Just not knowing where that line is around what you can and can't say to patients, or knowing how to instruct them on how to kind of find, evidence-based information about cannabis. So I think that the legislature really intended this as a training for all bud tenders that have a medical use endorsement that are interacting with patients, even the ones that maybe don't need that extra hand-holding. But from a practical standpoint, I don't know if we can fully kind of adhere to the letter of the law.
at this
Well,
moment in time.
while we haven't offered enough slots to be
Right.
to training people.
So our next one's in January.
Next one's in January.
And is there a one scheduled after that yet?
I talked to Canify yesterday, and they can do the training in pretty rapid succession. They can do, they could do one pretty quickly in February. So that would be if we did 3 of them and we focus those 3 on the people that actually have a medical use endorsement. That would be, 180 slots, give or take,
Do we know how many more MUE retailers are slated today? And
We, I think, have a couple today.
Okay.
And there are probably 2 or 3 that went online after their last training.
okay,
So we are talking about 5 at most.
so 15, 20.
So the
15, 20
trickle,
slots.
it's more of a trickle at this point.
Okay.
The retailers looking.
And, it's my intention, we even wrote it into the contract that it needs to shift to kind of an on-demand training that's self-paced, where people can kind of watch the modules in their own time, take the tests, the certification exam on their own time, and kind of get trained whenever they're ready, not just at these defined times and these 60 person, limits. And I think we're actually relatively close to that. I mean, what I've noticed about the training is one of the best parts about it is being able to interact directly with the instructors. So we need to figure out how to incorporate that into a self-paced,
Asynchronous kind of
asynchronous approach. But I think that as far as just having the training available on demand, we actually could get there relatively soon. But the question is, there's turnover at stores, bud tenders come and go, they get sick. I mean, does the person really have to shut down or not process a medical sale just because they don't have every single person trained on this?
I think what makes sense to potentially do is like an interim step is kind of kick out the implementation date of this specifically to like May or June, and take the next couple months to see which new retailers want the MUE, how many folks are signing up from those specific retailers, inviting people businesses that have already had somebody go through the training back to train new bud tenders, and kind of get a report around March around how many folks actually have received this training, and kind of see if we've kind of come to this kind of like come to a head with how many folks within an actual retailer on average have the training, because if we make it easy with so many opportunities for bud tenders to get it, I see it as less of a burden.
Yeah.
On the flip side, I'm totally with you from a practical perspective, with where's the true intent of this type of enhanced relationship versus, what's more of a day-to-day business kind of to customer to patient interaction.
Yeah. So I think, that's where I'm landing as well. What I think is the only point of disagreement I have is I think there might actually be a incentive for people to really get their bud tenders trained if we move that date up a little bit. So we can always push it out, but
Okay.
I think if we can get 3 or 4 trainings in the next,
By like March.
by March, then I don't think, that would be either 180 or 240 potential slots where people could get trained. And to me, that feels like.
And I think in the meantime, what we could do is hear practically from retailers who are seeing medical patients on what that kind of typical interaction looks like, feels like, how much time is spent with that medical patient who needs and wants this extra help.
And Melissa, can you remind me, in the early days of the medical program, you needed to actually have a reservation. You couldn't just walk into a dispensary. You needed to set up a reservation.
Yeah.
You could only come during a certain time frame, and you had to be the only one in the store too, right?
That's generally how they operate it.
So it's actually not, a huge new burden if you only have one person trained to make sure that, that person come at a specific time or request that that person make a reservation. Okay. So I think what I'm hearing, the middle ground between these two kind of conflicting ideas would be maybe say, we're going to give people a little bit of leeway. You need to have at least one person train on duty who's got the enhanced training for every hour you're open or every hour you're serving medical patients. And then by March 1st, there's an expectation that any bud tender that's interacting with a patient has received this training. And in the interim, we would love to hear from the medical use endorsed retailers as to how practical that is. And please get your bud tenders trained on this, because training.
Yeah, and really push out the invitation if there's slots available to that.
Yeah.
We can push out that opportunity to folks
Right. Yeah.
over the next couple months, and maybe in February at the beginning, kind of talk more about this if there's a need to push it again.
Yep. Okay. Is that all right?
Yeah, we'll do our outreach. Again, thank you for stressing that it really comes down to businesses encouraging their bartenders to take the time, sign up, get the training. It's a great resource, and clearly we got some great feedback from those who attended the first one. So
Yeah.
hopefully folks sign up.
And the certification exam, there was like a 90%, 99% pass rate. So the exact percentage, 95%, 97%. So it's not an owner. It's 5-hour training. It's a lot, but
A lot of good information, and it seems, folks were able to prove that they learned something.
yeah. Okay. All right. Moving along. What else do we have? Presumptive disqualification issues.
Mr. Chair, I know a lot of people are pinched for time and have childcare issues and
Yes.
whatnot. These happen to be contested case issues that you're permitted to deliberate on outside of an open meeting, that we put them here just for convenience.
Okay.
If you're looking to cut time, I might recommend tabling this, deliberating on
Okay.
this in private.
Okay.
You can give favorable as well as unfavorable decisions in writing, that people have them. That probably might delay them 24 hours.
Okay.
That works. I mean, we're also running way over, and yes, I have to pick up my child at a certain time today. So appreciate everybody moving expeditiously, but whatever you think's best.
Why don't we move this agenda item to the bottom,
Okay.
and then see what time it is when we get to it. So why don't we do the executive director report?
It just totally.
Oh, sorry.
But I know. I wasn't quite ready with that, but I will.
Well, Gabe, do you want to do the ninth state?
Oh,
Is that
Oh, yeah. Do you want to do that? Do you need?
no.
to do that?
I could totally do that. I was just saying
Okay.
that.
Sorry.
Yeah. No, I wish I was a little better. Yeah. Good. Okay, there we go. So here is our executive director report. All of the data is as of December 12th, unless noted otherwise. So we, as always, start with active licenses, and I actually have 2 slides for you here on active licenses. So we'll start with a snapshot of all licenses across the last 12 months. And we are now at 571, 5 fewer than in the previous months, and 30 fewer than a year ago. Again, everybody knows that we've closed new applications in a few types and tiers. Thus, this attrition is to be expected. And I have one more slide on this that looks further back. So Liz, our amazing data manager, was able to pool active license data going back all the way to July of 2023. So we can now view the historical trends through all the way over the last however many months it is. As you could see here, right, we are showing quite notable, somewhat artificial, I might even say, spike in the active licenses between November of 24 and around March of 25. You may all remember that this increase followed board's announcement in the fall of 24 of the closure of retail and cultivation application windows. And at that point, we all may remember a large number of applications that were submitted to us before the deadline. And then you could see since about May of this year, the number of active licenses has been gradually declining, headed towards the pre-closure levels. You could sort of see this in the chart. Again, we'll keep an eye on this, but just wanted to show you more historical trends here.
Thank you.
All right, moving on. Now we're looking at active licenses by type across the most recent 3 months. No really significant changes here months over months, just slight fluctuations. Couple cultivator, we're down a couple cultivators, couple retailers, and also manufacturers, plus a gain of a wholesaler and a propagator. So again, typically what we've been seeing in the prior months. Priority status slide, pretty steady figures months over months. I'll move on to the cultivator licenses data. So here, yeah, we're capturing the changes. I think a drop of a couple cultivators is reflected here, but again, months over months, no significant changes. And then again, more cultivator data. So now it's 3 months worth of data, broken down by type and tier. So green is the color you're looking for. I guess the only changes here are in the indoor tier 2. 2 of those cultivators exited the market, and then a drop in one mixed tier 1 as well. So that's what we have here for you. Now onto the licensed canopy capacity square footage numbers. Those reflect exiting indoor cultivators. So you see a little drop in our indoor canopy capacity square footage numbers. There is a slight increase in the outdoor capacity, but that's aspects in an administrative error. We misreported last month. So again, we did not gain an outdoor cultivator. It's just correction. But numbers are pretty consistent again, months over months. Right. And now we'll take a closer look at the relinquishments for December. You've seen this chart before, So the chart on your left breaks down relinquishments by priority status. And so if you look at that one, you'll see we are reporting 10 relinquishments, including 5 social equity, 4 economic empowerment, and 1 standard. And then if you look at the chart on the right, the furthest to the right is our December data. And those 10 relinquishments are broken down by the license type and tier. So those 10 include 2 indoor tier 2 cultivators that I referenced, a couple manufacturers, tier 1, and also a couple tier 2 retailers as well. Again, months over months, we're looking at 9 or 10 relinquishments. So again, numbers are tracking. Okay. So that is our licensing data for the months. And now we'll move on to the compliance and enforcement data. This data is through December 15th. A quick overview 78 inspections and 17 investigations recorded in December. If we just look at our investigations, this data is for the last 3 months, and December numbers are in blue. You could see that most of our investigations impacted retail, cultivation, and manufacturing as well, and one wholesaler has been under an investigation as well. Now, if we look even closer at the types of the investigative work currently underway, and again, the color here helps to differentiate between different license types. So red is for our retailers. So you could, and then other colors are listed below, right? With a sole wholesaler implicated in some sales reporting, but you could see where our license compliance team has been focusing its attention. And again, all types of investigations ranging from advertising to reporting to on-site consumption and anything else in between. Now, other compliance and enforcement actions here. So again, you're looking at the columns in blue. And if you look, so we're showing 36 new complaints, 5 notices of violation, 5 destructions, and our compliance team also documented 3 cessations of operation. Yeah. We'll look at our complaint types. So as it usually is, advertising leads the way. We got 7 complaints this month, followed by complaints related to business operations, sales reporting, inspection violations, and others as listed.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Just a few more slides here. Our notices of violations represented here. A very intense slide. And one each, just one each. Okay, very different reasons this month. And then a quick look at the reasons reported to our compliance team for the cessations of operation. I would note that the data here is based on just 4 responses. So market access was mentioned twice, and then side issues and profitability once. So again, a pretty tiny subset of data. Yep. Okay. And next, what I'm going to present here with help of Mike DiTomaso, our compliance and enforcement director, is the data slide. And Mike will go more into that, but in part of the improved consistency and accuracy of our inventory tracking reports that we have been receiving from the licensees, we're now in a position for the first time to publicize some statewide data of a type that is often requested by our stakeholders. The subcategorization of the product type is still imperfect. So today we'll start with a very sort of limited estimated gross sales and price averages for flower and pre-rolls, leaving products aside. And so Mike should be able to walk you through and kind of have a information available as we have it right now. Mike, I'll have 2 slides, so I'll present this one and then a chart that Liz put together.
Okay, great. Yeah, so before I go into the data, just want to provide some background. Our IT partners and some staff that are really great at working on this type of data development are developing dashboard tools to enhance the utility of our inventory tracking data. The primary purpose of the inventory tracking is the prevention and detection of irregular transfers. Some data can't be shared because it relates to active investigations, and other is so granular that it would reveal trade secrets of businesses required to report. However, we all believe the public is entitled to see data that can be shared without undermining our enforcement functions or others' privacy. So as tools evolve, the board will have to decide the most appropriate frequency and granularity of this reporting. So beginning this year, we're seeing improvements in consistency and reliability sufficient to cautiously draw some conclusions about our data. This summer, the Compliance Division began a concerted effort to bring all licensees into compliance with reporting requirements, and we're grateful for the cooperation from the community. We agreed with the requester to test reporting of certain statewide figures, and I can quickly show you some of the preliminary estimates. Some of the figures might be biased by reporting phenomena that have not been identified. And as you can see here, for example, under column 3, average price per gram, October 2025, November 2025 are more accurate real representations of what price per gram actually is. This is because one of our point of sale providers corrected their API weight reporting function. Previously, they were reporting 3.5 gram eighth packages as 1 unit, and that was throwing off our data. So we're confident that we have better data as it relates to price per gram over the past few months. So you can kind of look at the previous months and adjust about 15% there. But as you can see here, this is data from January through November. We have total monthly retail sales, though that includes all product types. But going a little more granular, we have data for flower sales subtotals, average price per gram, pre-roll sales subtotals, average price per gram / pre-roll. We have a year-to-date total retail sales, and as you can see, that just increases through January through November. Year-to-date flower sales, year-to-date pre-roll sales. So I'll just let everyone take a minute to look at the numbers. I'm happy to answer questions about anything specific. But we're encouraged by what we have so far, and we're excited to provide more data as it becomes available.
This is great. Yeah, thank you. Do you have any recommendations as to how frequently we should be looking at that, or you just leave it up to us to debate that? And
yeah, I mean, I lean on the board to kind of make a decision there. I think, you know, maybe during the monthly meetings could be a great time to present updates on some of this information, at least as a start, while we work on creating some sort of dashboard.
Yeah, I was gonna say, and you had mentioned that there's a dashboard.
Yeah, that's still, I would say, far from launch, but that's the ultimate goal.
And I mean, in the meantime, we should also see if we could, make sure the data is cleaner and cleaner.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, I think over the next few months, as things evolve, you'll want to make some decisions as a board about what can we responsibly share publicly versus what's too unreliable to share publicly, versus, as Dave was talking about earlier, what's really so granular as trade secrets and it shouldn't be shared. So that, you know, as the data matures, you'll be in a position to make some more of those decisions, I think.
Well, thank you to you and the team, and and Liz and Alex and whoever else who helped catch how some of the POS providers were throwing off our data. That's really impacted our ability to kind of roll something like this out as quickly as all of us would have hoped.
Totally. Yeah. And just on that note, that is one thing that we're really working on right now, is just working with all the point of sale providers to make sure what they're giving us is accurate, what they receive is accurate on the back end.
And just for everybody, I pulled a slide that just talks about total sales, and Liz again very kindly put it in a beautiful charts, so we could see this past 11 months visual way.
And yeah, shout out to both Liz and Alex, two of our team members who have been instrumental in getting this data to us. They're both real wizards when it comes to data.
It'll be fun to kind of put that over, the spikes and growing season availability and tourist kind of visiting the state and kind of see where things line up as I think we all want to be able to run those reports internally as much as retailers and whoever else want that data to make business decisions.
Definitely. Yeah.
Okay.
Long time coming. Thank you guys so much.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks, Mike.
problem.
Thank you. Okay, so all of this is available. Of course, it's going to be on the website, but I'll move on because we have our medical program still to touch on. So what I have for you here is again a sign that the number of medical patients continues to grow. So we are 3,043 medical patients this month, adding over 40 since the last time we checked in, and we've gained a couple caregivers too. And I do have one more slide. Again, huge thanks to Liz, who was able to pull data from going back to 2011, providing a very long historical view. And again, the data here is based on November numbers from each of the years, starting in 2011. You could see here that the medical program peaked around 2018 at 5,300 patients that we had in November of that year. I think June of that year was the highest month. And then if you look at the current trends, we're now approaching numbers similar to what we had in November of 2023 after a dip in numbers. But November of 2023 is the last number we had over 3,000 patients. I know somebody asked that question last time. So that is the curve for the medical program.
Great.
All right. And now a quick look at the medically endorsed businesses. We have 20 retail stores with approved medical endorsements. And you could see on this map and references. And in terms of the new locations for December, those are Bethel, Brandon, Rutland, St. Johnsbury, and Woodstock. So we gained 5 businesses in the month of December with medical endorsement. Okay. And that is all we got for data and reporting. So if everybody's ready, we'll move into the staff recommendations for licensure, which we have quite a few slides today. So appreciate everybody's patience. Okay. We actually don't have any new licenses for you to approve this month. So we are going straight into the conventional license renewals that are recommended to you for approval. 2 slides here. We'll start with cultivators and manufacturers. I'll move on to the next slide. Again, conventional renewals. We'll just have retailers here. Okay.
I move that the board approve issuance of renewed licenses as recommended by the licensing division and reflected on the preceding 2 slides.
I second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Like this one does that one.
Thank you. All right. Now we're looking at the applicants who wish to renew in a different type and or tier. So first is it's Swift Hawk Canna LLC, asking the board to allow to move its manufacturing operations from tier 2 to tier 1 to better match its operations. And then Vermont Patients Alliance is asking to retire their integrated license and instead secure a retail license with medical endorsement an indoor tier 5 cultivation license, and a manufacturer tier 3 license. And our team recommends that these are approved.
I move that the board approve issuance of renewed and amended licenses as recommended by the licensing division and reflected in the preceding slide.
I second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So that's the last integrated license.
Yes,
Yeah.
that is it.
Wow.
Yes, I know. An end of an era.
End of an era, yeah.
Okay. All right. Next, we have here this business, Full Circle Farm LLC, has requested to amend its license to operate at a different location. They're moving from Williston to Underhill to an area with more space. Underhill does not have an LCC. The new site has already passed the inspection, and our licensing division recommends approval.
Is there a motion?
I move that the board approve the amendment of operating location requested by Full Circle Farm LLC.
I second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. All right, next, another amendment here. This is an amendment, a request to amend a licensee's ownership structure. There are two 50-50 owners who are so the ownership is being moved to their only employee. They're exiting the industry. And this proposed new owner has undergone all the required background check and any other requirements required for principals. And it is recommended by our licensing division that the board approve this change of ownership.
I move that the board approve the amendment of ownership structure requested by Octogenarian Enterprises doing business as Addison Pure, and congratulations to the colleague taking over.
I second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, thank you. Okay, next we have a slide with requests to amend licenses to allow ownership changes coincident with a regular license renewal. So it's a renewal and ownership change. The licensing division has received all required affiliations and background assessments, any other documentation needed, and recommends approval of the renewals for all three as requested.
I move that the board approve issuance of renewed and amended licenses as recommended by the licensing division and reflected in the preceding slide.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you for that one. Okay, next, here we have a request for ownership and location change simultaneous. Again, licensing division has received necessary documentation to support this request. Approval with contingencies is recommended here by our staff. And as a reminder, this business is relocating out of Rutland to Poultney, and it's a change that the board had found earlier that would actually improve retail distribution. Thus, it was allowed to move forward.
I move that the
I got
board.
a question.
Okay.
Yeah. Ownership and location change. Are these people, so this is a renewal, so we know that they're compliant with their tax liabilities and everything else. This is just a standard renewal, but it just includes an ownership and location change.
Well,
I think it was kind of complicated in the sense that long ago, there was an affiliations related issue
Right.
involving the
I remember
lease.
that, yeah.
They renegotiated the lease. My understanding is the operation never really got off the ground and into full operation in its initial approved Rutland location. And then I think other owners got involved and felt that it'd be more promising to find a different site, which they did. And then some months ago, I think they had approached you and said, could we please have a finding beforehand
Right.
before we spend money as required about concentration, which you did grant at that time.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Thank you. All right. Yeah.
I move that the board approve the combined amendment of ownership structure and location requested by Bewell VT, noting that the board has previously made the requisite finding that the retail relocation reasonably improves geographic distribution.
I second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
thank you. All right. So next is a business that is seeking to renew their license and also add a medical endorsement. with that renewal. The licensing division recommends that the board approve issuance of the endorsed license. And as a reminder, Rule 3.4.3b requires enhanced training for all patient-facing retail staff. And if approved, this business will also receive a written reminder of that from our licensing division.
Do they have any employees in the first training?
No, they have not applied
Okay.
at that point in time.
Okay. Yep. All right. Is there a motion?
I move that the board approve renewal with issuance of a medical use endorsement as recommended.
I second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, next, here's a late but now complete renewal application. This was the establishment's first renewal. The narrative has been shared with the board as well as a timeline for renewal. And the licensing team recommends that you take up and approve this late renewal application.
Is there a motion for that?
Almost. Gives hope there.
Okay.
There it is. I move that the board accept and approve the now complete application of Happy Tree Co. as recommended.
I second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, off we go. So here now for you is another late renewal application with a medical endorsement request attached to it. The licensing memo and the renewal timeline has been shared with the board ahead of this meeting. In this case, the retailer has failed to submit a timely renewal application. But at this point, their late application is complete. But the retailer has also requested to add a medical endorsement. Our licensing division believes that their untimely filings are not indicative of preparation to meet the heightened responsibilities associated with medical sales. And a noticed violation also remains unresolved for this business. If the board agrees, the licensing team recommends that the board accept the late application to renew, but dismiss the section concerning medical use eligibility and direct the establishment to apply to amend its license and add the endorsement after it has demonstrated 6 months of orderly operation.
All right. Is there a motion for that?
I move that the board accept the late renewal application and approve the renewal. However, I move that we find the 6 months of orderly operation prerequisite to issuance of the medical use endorsement has not been met.
I second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. All right, another one. So now you're looking at 2 businesses that are late on their renewal materials and remain incomplete at the time of this meeting. All timelines, renewal timelines, including also late narratives, have been shared with the board. The licensing division recommends extending these licenses till the next regularly scheduled board meeting in January, as the staff expects that all necessary materials required for renewal will be secured by that time.
Is there a motion to accept and continue?
Depends on how fast Gabe can type relative to how fast Olga can talk. I move that the board defer action on the renewal applications listed and continue the licenses in full force and effect until the board's next regular meeting.
I second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right.
Very appreciative for Gabe. Through.
Very fast
Julie
timer.
typically is the
All right.
motioner, the mover.
And there's your last one for today. So on this slide, we have an establishment with an untimely renewal submission that is seeking board's continuance and request an extension on their license renewal for some very specific reasons, particularly related to the issues with this site and pass an inspection. The licensing division does not recommend that this establishment be granted an extension. And of course, our staff is available to discuss this in more detail if necessary.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind talking about this one a little bit. So it's my understanding that they don't have an updated certificate of occupancy.
That is correct. Their initial certificate of occupancy was issued last year and was valid until 2027. However, they had multiple open building permits at this point in time. So before they can open to the public, those need to be closed out. And part of closing that out is a new certificate of occupancy.
Okay. Dave, do you know if we've ever renewed someone without a certificate of occupancy? It's kind of a weird situation because usually.
Yeah, I mean, typically, if you're renewing, you by definition ought to have one already.
You already
in
have one
place.
already, yeah.
Did they expire earlier?
No, last year they came in right under the wire of us closing retail. They had just moved into that space and it was set up at that point in time, because it had previously been a bookstore. And they set up their security and everything. They were able to get licensed, but then after becoming licensed, decided to do construction. So that construction began after the licensure, which is why that certificate of occupancy is now not back.
Yeah.
Okay.
Have they ever been in operation as a retailer? No. Have they ever had product?
And we had our compliance agents there in the city of Burlington, and we don't have anything.
Yeah,
in
they still need security.
security.
Some security. Yeah. Okay. So the consequence of us not extending today,
Mhm.
can you lay out what the next steps for this licensee would be?
I think if the licensee expired, I'm not sure what the expiration date is exactly, not necessarily today. But if it expire on the expiration date, it would cease to have a license. Obviously, it can't operate right now anyway because it doesn't have an occupancy certificate.
Right.
But it would then, like any business, have 60 days to, the license would lapse. There would be a 60-day period in which they could file a late and complete renewal.
Okay.
The lapse itself could have negative impacts for their ability to maintain insurance, for example, to have inventory. But that 60-day window exists in which they could renew and not have to apply as a new applicant, which of course one can't do right now.
Right.
So it'd be very important if they lapse at the expiration that they fix it within 60 days.
So they don't have any product.
Sounds like no, nor should they without a certificate of occupancy.
Right.
So technically, this business will have 60 days to address the concerns without losing their license and then can renew as a late applicant without losing the license completely. I'm just laying this out for the folks listening.
Yeah.
That's right. That was a change made or clarification made in your summer rule update.
Yep.
So now it's that 60-day window. After the 60 days, one has to apply as a new applicant, which is a very big problem if the window is shut.
Sure. So there'll be 2 months of opportunity to get the building and the building done, the certificate of occupancy, and get back on our agenda.
It sounds like we're fairly responsive. We can do our piece relatively quickly. It sounds like the fire marshal has been relatively responsive in this case.
I believe, Melissa, they've been there a couple times in the last
Yeah,
month.
he's been there twice in the last couple of weeks and he's been in communication with me each time to update me on that. So.
Yeah. So everything could fall into place in the next 60 days. Can you,
Not sooner.
if not sooner, yeah. On a separate issue, can you remind me what we did in our rule amendment around people that have a license but don't operate?
Yeah, you installed this summer a requirement that licensees begin operating within a certain number of days of issuance. The application of that rule to this particular circumstance where the license originally issued before the summer or last renewed before the summer is kind of questionable.
Okay.
But effective now, anybody who issues today has, is it 30 or 60 days
60 days.
to be in operation. And if the principle there being you can't just hold an unused license
Right.
for later.
Right.
So everybody who's approved today has to begin operating in 60 days, and anybody renewed today would have to begin operating in 60 days, really.
Okay. All right. Well, is there anyone have any other questions?
No, I think there's a plan for this renewal to cure its renewal defects, both with the city of Burlington and with the board.
Right. We're just putting a 60-day time limit on it.
Right.
Okay. All right. Is there a motion?
I move that the board decline to accept the late and incomplete renewal application.
I second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Great. That is all I got for you today. Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. That was a lot. I know,
Mhm.
those reports, they may seem tedious, but it represents a tremendous amount of work on licensing, compliance, and everyone in the industry. Thank
We
you.
have a lot more complex, one-off, unique cases these days. So
Yes.
it's all because of the work of the team that we're able to pull it together
Yeah.
months after months.
Do you have time?
I got time. I just
Okay.
gotta be there by 3:30. So let's
Okay, all right,
run.
yep. Can we do the permit for the 9th state inventory management?
Yes. I think that's next.
Dave, are you gonna walk us through that or?
Yes, happy to do that. Sorry, I've just got to do a little bit of clicking to get
Yeah.
where I need to be. So Ninth State expired in October. The cause was issues under Section 3113
Mhm.
of the tax title. That, just like with the last expiration, that kicked off the 60-day reinstatement period, and that reinstatement period will end tomorrow. At this point, we don't have a favorable report from the department, and so it looks like it is highly probable that the expiration will become permanent.
Okay.
We do have inventory. Staff went and had a good look at the inventory. They know it's there. There's a current health and safety order in place directing Ninth State to basically secure everything, lock it down, keep it under video, not transact anything. That will remain in force. As you know, as we recently used for the first time in the case of Cognizant Sparks, the authority granted to you by the General Assembly after the last session to issue special permits to distressed cannabis establishments and court-appointed receivers and others, basically just to allow somebody to be appointed to manage the orderly unwinding of a business. So that's what we've recommended as a solution here. As we've talked about too many times before, when a license expires, so does the legal right to lawfully possess commercial amounts of cannabis. And it's in everybody's interest that this be disposed of, to avoid waste, to avoid loss of inventory tracking. It's in everybody's interest that with this unwind in an orderly way. So the section 886 of Title VII, which is new this year, gives you authority to issue these special permits. This would be the second time that you had done one. We spoke with the Department of Taxes about how they would like to see this done. One of the reasons for the changes that you made to Rule 1 is to ensure that people departing a business and leaving a license have met their tax obligations. It's also the department asked for an amendment that made applicable its bulk sales statute 32 BSA 3260. That is a provision of the tax law that allows the commissioner to kind of get between business and liquidation of its inventory. It has important implications for the rights of a buyer or the liabilities of a buyer. And so taxes had some good suggestions for us about how to make sure the buyer is made aware of those risks and enters them in an informed way. So I provided you in electronic form and won't read it unless somebody really wants, which you do not, a proposed language for a special permit that, if you approve, could be issued to the proprietor in this case so that the inventory can be disposed lawfully. The idea, or as written right now, it would grant 30 days to lawfully dispose of the inventory. That means, either destroy it, surrender it to us, or preferably sell it to somebody, a licensee in the industry who's entitled to have it and avoid waste. And that has to be done in compliance with the tax department and whatnot. But the permit lays all that out. If you were to approve of the permit as written, that would be issued to him, and there would be 30 days to do that. If you have any concerns about, whether there should be more guardrails on the permit or whether the time period should be longer or shorter, obviously we can amend it accordingly.
Okay. No,
They seem to still have a considerable amount of product and flower on hand. Do we practically think within 30 days they can move this in a way that's not destroying it?
I guess we don't know what we don't know, but, Yeah.
Look at him like it's 30 days. Nothing.
I think you can get it done.
Okay, all right.
He's
That was my
known
question.
about it. I mean,
Sure.
at least it's not a surprise,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
That's where.
So I mean, I think I understand the situation that we're in, but it was always my thought that this would be a third party authorization, not an authorization to the licensee. It's expired. Is there a reason why that's not possible in this case? It may be something.
It has to do with inventory tracking.
Okay.
Really, because that's the easiest way to make
Okay.
sure that proper reporting
Okay.
takes place. Mike maybe can speak more to that complexities if we were to introduce a third party
Okay.
that does not have
Okay.
a way to get into the system. And
Okay. But these sales wouldn't be sales to the public. They'd
No,
be to other
no.
licensees.
Right.
Okay.
And an express term of the permit
Yeah.
would be no sales to the public. These would be in-industry sales.
Thank you.
All right. Well, I think I'm fine with the 30-day timeframe that's laid out here. And if it needs to be revisited, maybe it can be, but I think as it stands here, I think this is probably sufficient for the purposes that we need it for. All right. Any other questions?
Nope.
Oh, is there a motion?
Yes, I closed that document.
Well, we could just, there's nothing there anyway.
Okay.
But we could just take a general approval from the board for staff to issue the permit.
if you move to.
I moved to establish the permit.
Yes, and or really to authorize Pepper to sign the permit, I guess, because he's.
I moved to authorize Pepper to sign the permit on behalf of the board.
I second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay.
So apologies for the wonky.
Sorry about that. I just.
Do you have time for
Yeah,
the
let's do it.
three presumptive
rock it.
disqualifications? That's the last one we have, right?
Mhm.
So I don't have any concerns with the first two. The third one, the only, and this is S13723. My only concern is this person is on probation, correct?
Mhm.
They've been on probation for a decent amount of time, I think, and this is a relatively minor charge. But have we done that before?
You had settled on what I thought was a really clear policy that just, if a person is still under sentence
Right.
for a conviction that's presumptively disqualifying, they are ineligible until the
Right.
sentence is completed. And I think you had adopted that just sort of as a rule of consistency and fairness. There's a little bit to recommend following that unless there's compelling reason not to. My understanding from the reports is that the person may be approaching completion very
Right.
soon and may be, if denied, could be denied without prejudice to future reapplication. But that's a question for the board's discretion, I think.
So I think what weighs in favor of us approving, if we're going to both sides this thing, is this is, of all things considered, no offense to the victim, but a relatively minor crime. It was downgraded, I think. And if I'm recalling the correct one. The probation officer is in full support, and there is a lot of support from the business owner who this person works for. And it looks like they're, if I were to kind of guess, be released from probation in January. So really we would be,
Working them a couple weeks.
giving them a couple weeks, which, cuts against consistency with a very clear board rule, but maybe the other factors weigh in favor of us doing it. Do you feel strongly on this one?
I do not. I think that makes sense.
Okay. Okay, well then, Gabe, what do you need from us? It sounds like Kyle and I are both in agreement that we should say that these people have overcome presumptive disqualification.
Well, then that's a quorum and we could issue the license then. And I think the essential finding would be sort of what you said. It may not be in the interest of the public or anybody to basically make somebody refile papers in 30 days.
Right. Okay. All right. I think that's it then.
All right.
That was a lot to get through. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Really, thank you, everyone who stuck with us through all those discussions. And we'll see you in the new year.
Yeah. Merry Christmas. Happy Hanukkah.
Yeah.
Thank you, everybody.
I'll adjourn the meeting.
Thanks.